Alright, for this episode we are continuing the free-to-play guide. For part 2 we're looking at a tactical officer in an escort. I'm going to be flying the Advanced Escort, also known as the Prometheus class, from Star Trek Voyager episode A Message in a Bottle. And we are running our Advanced Escort today as a cannon and torpedo escort build. So like before, I'm going to take a look at everything that makes up this PvP build and go through some pointers on how to successfully play this ship in PvP. Starting off with our ship equipment. For my 4 weapons, we have 3 dual heavy cannons. I'm using phasers on this build, so work with any energy type flavor. However, I do like the phaser proc that can disable subsystems, so that's why I'm running them here. Also, if you remember last week, I touched on why it's important to have the correct modifiers on your weapons to make sure you have at least one accuracy modifier. Also up front, we have a quantum torpedo, which is great for taking out your enemy's hull. For aft weapons, I've got 1 phaser turret, then from the Omega reputation system, the bore cutting beam, and Omega plasma torpedo. Next we have a Mako shield and deflector. The reason I've gone with this equipment is that the shield is resilient and has a 10% all energy and 20% plasma energy damage reduction. It's very useful. Then with the deflector, it grants a nice bonus to shield emitters and adds some hit points to my hull. Now with both these Mako pieces, it grants me a bonus magnetoplasma relays. It grants me a 5% power recharge buff. Interestingly, 5% recharge affects everything, including weapons firing cycles. For an engine, I'm running the Aegis engine. This is the Hyper Impulse engine. It will grant me more speed based off the higher engine power. And that also grants me a nice 5% defense bonus. For warp cores, it's entirely up to you. I've got a core that grants me plus 5 maximum auxiliary and transfers a percentage of my auxiliary power to my weapons. In devices, I've got a weapons battery and of course the subspace field modulator. Next up are our consoles. Both our engineering slots are occupied by neutronium armors to provide good hull damage resistance to everything. Then for science, this is where I'm going to slot my special consoles. Everything here I believe is universal. To start with, I've got the Borg assimilated module. With this console and the other Borg weapons, I qualify for the full Omega console set bonuses, providing me with the Omega weapons amplifier to help my weapons power, and the reactive deflection passive, which is a small chance to reduce incoming damage taken by a significant amount for a whole 2 seconds. Even so, a nice bonus. Next is the subspace jump console. Your best bet to get this is, as a Federation player, is on the exchange. The reason I've got this is that we don't have the best turn rate or speed in our escort, and this is to hopefully level the battlefield for us. Also, I have the 0 point energy conduit, mainly for the extra 1.8% critical chance bonus, but I have to admit this isn't that useful in this ship, and if you want you could run a fuel generator. Also at this point I'd like to say there's one other console you could run. You could go for the multi-vector console from the STO ship. This console will really help your ship's speed and maneuverability, so it's one STO purchase that I would recommend if you like flying this ship. And then finally, in our tactical slots, we've got 4 phaser relays to boost our phaser weapons as much as possible. Remember, it's always best to run one energy type flavor and use the corresponding energy type consoles to get the greatest damage potential. So that's our gear on our escort. Let's look at the bridge atmosphere layout. To start with, we have the most important skill, 2 copies of Tactical Team 1. I highly recommend. If you're flying an escort, you have at least 2 copies of this skill, as it's really key to your survivability. Then we have 2 attack patterns, attack pattern Omega 1 and Delta 1. Omega 1 is such a great attack pattern. It boosts your damage, your flight speed, your turn rate. While active, it grants damage resistance and immunity to disable and holds. Then Delta works differently. It can be cast on yourself and allies to grant the target some damage resistance, and if an enemy ship shoots you, they will get a damage resistance debuff. Then we have 2 cannon skills, Cannon Rapid Fire 3 and Scatter Volley 1, to augment our dual heavy cannons. Then to enhance our torpedo damage, we have 1 copy of High Yield 3. With the engineering station, I have emergency power to engines 1 and shields 2, and following up with heals in the science stations, we have science T1, emitters 1 and transfer 2. A few notes on the skill tree here. You can see that I have heavy investment into tactical systems. Many people don't run torpedoes in an Escort as it's expensive to spec into, and I assure you it is worth it. Under engineering, I have the essentials. I even have some points in batteries and reasonable expenditure into power levels and extra hull armor. Not much points left down for science, but we have our shield hit points and healing. It's essential, and I've got a few points left over for science resists. Now to look at the DOFs for the build, I have 2 shield distribution DOFs to help with survivability, along with 2 con officers that reduce the cooldown on my evasive maneuvers, with an extra comp maintenance engineer to give me my extra boosts with my batteries. For reputation bonuses, again I'm going to go all out to offensive. I like to have every tactical advantage that I can get. For traits, I don't have much to say here, but accurate and elusive traits are always good. The 2 career Pacific traits for tacticals aren't that fantastic compared to the engineer's traits, but you should have the trait slots to run these anyway. In terms of keybinds for an Escort, the keybinds are identical to the binds I used on the cruiser build in the last episode. I will add to one of these binds however, and change the T key that puts our power level to speed preset, but this time it's going to also press some of the buttons on, well, the first 3 slots in tray 5. So you can get this bind in the show notes below. What this bind will help you with is speed tanking. So on my tray 5 I have my evasive maneuvers, power to engines and attack pattern omega in this order. The reason for this is that stunts or disables will disrupt your evasive, so if your omega is activated first, then your evasive maneuvers can't be knocked off when you're disabled. Also at this point I want to suggest some power level presets for your Escort. So for attack, let's keep that the same, but for our speed preset, let's use 15, 15, 170. Then with the balance power setting, we're going to use that as a full auxiliary power setting, mainly for healing. We're going to run a 15, 15, 70, 100. With regard to setting up our trays, tray 4 and 7, assuming we have the keybind set up from the previous episode, on our spacebar we're going to have my 2 cannon skills, the high yield, attack pattern omega and power to shields, just like they are on screen. And then for the heals, we're going to put them in tray 7 like last time. We're going to have both tactical teams, then attack pattern delta, emitters and our transfer. It's also good to have them in this order, as tactical team 1 will always be the first thing to trigger when you hit a heal keybind. So I think that covers everything we need in terms of setting up an Escort for PvP, so let's go through some tips on how to fly this ship. Like usual, I've got some footage of this build in action in public queues. When it comes to flying the ship, changing your power levels constantly is so important. It's about using speed preset every time you're not shooting to chase targets down and outmaneuver them, along with being in full attack mode when you're shooting, and then every time you want to heal you have to be in full auxiliary. When it comes to tanking, you want to constantly manually distribute your shields like normal. This build doesn't have an RSP, but you can use power to shields and transfer shield strength together to provide a good level of shield damage resistance, along with brace for impact dodge to regenerate your hit. But once you've used those skills, it's time to do some speed tanking, so use your attack pattern omega, power to engines and evasive, not necessarily to run away, but to outturn and primarily stay out of your enemy's firing arcs. When it comes to attacking other players, you have to time your approach with care. When it comes to selecting your target, don't just start shooting him, just first off look at his buffs. Mainly you want to be mindful of his tactical team and RSP buffs. You should always aim to have your tactical buffs firing at him just as his tactical team is due to expire, so without tactical team he will take more damage. When it comes to firing your weapons as a tactical captain in Star Trek Online, your main damage ability is attack pattern alpha, hence why people talk about their alpha strikes, which is simply all your tactical buffs stacked on top of each other. So if you look at my power tray here, I've got really 2 rows of tactical abilities. These ones here include my go down fighting, attack pattern alpha, tactical initiative, attack pattern omega, tactical fleet and weapons battery. Now these abilities will have longer cooldowns, so I'm going to call them my alpha abilities. And then in tray 1 below I am going to call these my weapon abilities. So I've got my cannon skills, my high yield and my tactical teams. So when I'm just casually shooting other players, I'm going to use my weapon skills in tray 1, and if I really want to blow other people up, I'm going to start using my alpha skills. These are sort of arranged in order, so you can just click across, left to right, from alpha to weapons battery, and then press the spacebar to activate the weapon skills. This is rapidly followed by a manual clicking of a tactical team. Now if done effectively, and in rapid succession all these buffs will be active at once. It gives you great damage potential. There's one other skill, Fire on My Mark. This is cleared by tactical team. So your aim is not to cast this on enemies that have an active tactical team, as it will be instantly cleansed. Your best bet is to watch for a tag team to expire and then apply it. What I do in general when I'm playing is I start buffing my alpha when the target has about 3 seconds left in their tactical team, and normally my weapons fire will hit them just as it expires. With this build, once you hit your buffs, your aim is to keep the target within the front cannon arcs, which is only a 45-degree arc on the front of your ship. And you fire your cannons and torpedoes at the same time, so your cannons take out a shield facing and then the torpedoes take out the hull. Now there's one thing more dangerous than an alpha strike, and that can be only a go down fighting alpha strike. This means using every tactical buff that you have along with the go down fighting skill. Go down fighting is a skill that increases your damage output based on your hull level, so less hull you have is more damage. You must be below 50% hull or less to activate this. You will encounter players that have incredibly resilient or somewhat tanky builds, and this is one way to take them out. To start with, get all your buffs ready, make sure you have every tactical ability available, ready to activate and off cooldown. You may have to fly about in engine mode to avoid damage while doing this. Then control your hull level, maybe by even purposely taking damage through one of your shield facings, so that you control the level of your hull. And then you want to get some damage resistance, hit your brace for impact, your tactical team, and then buff your shields with power to shields and transfer shield strength, so that you won't lose any more hull. And then of course, next you alpha out, hit everything you've got, hit your go down fighting, attack hard and alpha, all your powers. So this most likely is your highest damage potential. You've only got limited time with this amount of damage, so you gotta make it count and fire everything. Like usual, I'm going to leave you guys to some clips of this build in action. One thing I want you to watch for is the change in power levels, especially when it comes to healing myself and others. Enjoy! I'll just do a quick comment on phasers here. They are amazing. When you proc someone's shields, it is almost hysterical. This here, what you're seeing now, happened by chance, and it's just an example of how dangerous phasers can be when they're followed by some quantum torpedoes. Now a quick comment on the scoreboard here. This is me. You can see I came second in damage, which is expected with this ship. However, what may be considered slightly irregular is the almost equal amount of healing which was achieved. So this just shows you that switching to full auxiliary when you use your heals really gives you a reward of some juicy healing numbers at the end of the match. That wraps up a free-to-play escort guide. Up next, community stuff.